Staff at Memorial Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, notified local police about a 19-year-old shooting victim that had been brought in by two people on May the 24th of 2023. The teenager, identified as Anaya Womack, had suffered a single gunshot wound to her abdomen and was accompanied to the emergency room by a male driver and 20-year-old Mariah Clayton. Womack was treated for her injuries but didn't survive the shooting. Clayton and her companion were detained, and at first they claimed not to know what had happened to the victim. Clayton reported that she'd seen her hurt on the sidewalk, at which point she decided to take her to the hospital. Later on, the driver spoke to the authorities and revealed that the incident had taken place at an apartment complex where he'd gone to buy marijuana. Upon his arrival, he was told that Womack had accidentally shot herself and that she needed a ride to the hospital. The man stated that he was not present at the scene when the shooting happened. After checking his cell phone location data, investigators concluded he was telling the truth. On October the 5th, police issued an arrest warrant for Mariah Clayton. The following day, the woman was taken into custody and charged with manslaughter. After her arrest, Clayton confessed to shooting Womack accidentally while they were filming TikToks in the bathroom of an apartment late at night. According to an arrest affidavit, a man who was also in the apartment at the time had warned them not to mishandle the rifle, saying, "You all don't need to be playing with no gun." However, Clayton did not listen, and without her realizing, the weapon discharged, striking Womack in the abdomen. The 20-year-old was booked on a $250,000 bond. Number 6. Johnny Devon Young. On May the 4th of 2022, Johnny Devon Young, a self-proclaimed incel, faced several charges in California, some of which had hate crime enhancements for a series of attacks against women. Incels, a term derived from involuntary celibate, are an online community of young men who typically consider themselves unable to attract women and thus manifest rage towards them. Young's attacks took place between November the 21st of 2021 and April the 17th of 2022. On the former date, according to court records, Young filmed himself talking to several women outside a nightclub at the Triangle Square Retail Center in Costa Mesa. He asked them to show him various body parts and to have intercourse with him, then pepper sprayed a woman and her friend when he was rejected. One of the victims, who was only named as Emily, later spoke to Inside Edition about the confusion she'd felt upon being approached by Young, as she thought he was doing something either for internet clout or just to be some weird social experiment. When she was pepper sprayed, Emily reportedly managed to punch Young in the face and bloodied his nose. The footage was posted online and joined a series of similar videos Young had published of his attacks, presumably for the enjoyment of like-minded individuals in the incel community. In one clip, Young targeted a woman who was crying because her car had been stolen. He asked her to have intercourse with him and verbally assaulted her when she refused. During the April of 2022 incident, Young recorded himself as he approached three women who were sitting on a bench while waiting for an Uber outside a nightclub. He started describing his manhood to them, but one of them kicked him and asked him to back off. As tensions escalated, she threw her phone at Young, at which point he pepper sprayed her and her friend. As the incel ran away, he sprayed a third woman who tried to stop him. One of the victims, named Jessica, later said of the attack, "You can't describe the pain. It was horrible." During one of the incidents, Young had also assaulted a man who'd attempted to intervene. After 5 of his victims were identified, Young was arrested on September the 5th in San Mateo County and charged with 4 felony counts of assault with great bodily injury, illegal use of tear gas, the personal use of a deadly weapon, and hate crime enhancements. The 25-year-old had a prior misdemeanor hate crime conviction in Nevada. For his latest charges, Young faced a maximum sentence of 13 years in state prison if convicted. Number 5. Bikari Bron Ogaro. In November of 2023, English TikToker Bikari Bron Ogaro, known on the platform as Mizzy, was found guilty of 2 counts of breaching a court order prohibiting him from sharing footage of people without their consent. He'd originally been issued the order following a series of pranks, including one in which he and his friends had randomly barged into the property of a banker and interior designer in Dalston East London. The 19-year-old influencer flouted the order within hours of it being issued on May the 24th of 2023 by sharing a video of himself saying, "The UK law is a joke," as passers-by were visible behind him. Ogaro had gained popularity on social media for uploading videos of other so-called pranks, such as riding atop a bus, tearing up books in a library, taking an elderly woman's dog, harassing an Orthodox Jewish man by trying to jump over him, starting a fight with a man with dwarfism, or grabbing hold of a schoolboy by his uniform. In one incident, Ogaro filmed himself entering a train driver's cab in Stratford. In the 40-second video, the teenager laughed with his friends as he picked up a phone handset and asked to call the police. Following the incident, Ogaro was accused of endangering the safety mechanism of a train. In May of 2023, he appeared at Thames Magistrates Court in Bow, East London, to face punishment for his pranks. The teenager had to remain in custody overnight as his mother refused to have him back home. After breaching the order, he was sentenced to 18 weeks of detention in a young offender institution. During the November sentencing, Judge Matthew Bones said his pranks were motivated by a desire to be famous and that they were not funny. Number 4. Gerard and Deala and Andre and Tonio. 19-year-old Gerard and Deala walked into the Newcastle International Airport in Newcastle upon Tyne, England, on July the 3rd of 2023. The teenager headed towards the terminal building and started recording himself as he walked past the check-in desks while claiming to be carrying an explosive device. The video was interrupted by security staff, and officers from Northumbria Police subsequently detained Deala and his friend Andre Antonio. The former was taken into custody and charged with communicating false information about a bomb hoax. Deala appeared at Newcastle Magistrates Court and pleaded guilty to the charge, admitting that he'd intended to post the recording on YouTube. At first, Antonio denied having been involved in the stunt. In mid-August, he confessed to actively participating in filming it, pleading guilty to the same charges as Deala. They were both remanded in custody until sentencing and faced a maximum sentence of 7 years of imprisonment. Number 3. Zan Soya. On January the 10th of 2021, a passerby walking through Times Square in New York City noticed the driver suddenly slumping in his car and hitting his head on the wheel, falling unconscious. The witness quickly flagged down a New York Police Department vehicle and asked the officers for help. They started banging on the car in an attempt to wake the man up, and seeing that there was no reaction, an officer decided to break one of the windows in order to pull him out. The man, identified as 30-year-old Zan Soya, received aid and water from the police crew. As he regained consciousness, he was helped into an ambulance and paramedics tended to him. When asked about what had happened, Soya claimed that 2 workouts and a Red Bull had caused him to faint. The man was soon released into the care of a friend. Weeks later, on January the 25th, Soya uploaded a video to his YouTube channel where he was known as Prince Z. In the clip, he was shown preparing the stunt and talking about how he was going to test New Yorkers by passing out in traffic in Times Square, as his post became viral, gaining over 150,000 views within only 4 days. Soya was heavily criticized by users, accusing him of wasting medical resources in a pathetic pursuit of fame. Shortly after the video was published on Soya's account, NYPD Commissioner Dermot Schaer announced on Twitter that Soya had been arrested for his dangerous stunt. He was charged with false reporting of an incident, obstructing governmental administration, criminal nuisance, and disorderly conduct. Today's topic was requested by Cali Girl living in Nevada 8. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Daisy Dukes. YouTube prankster Daisy Dukes, who had nearly 100,000 subscribers on her channel, Daisy Dukes TV, uploaded footage of a controversial hoax targeting Walmart customers and employees in August of 2023. In the video, Dukes was shown setting up the scene and carrying a TV inside the store with a shopping cart, assisted by a friend. She was intercepted by Walmart employees who told her that recording inside the store was prohibited, but she refused to stop filming. The woman then placed the device in the television section on an empty shelf. As customers and employees walked by, she started smashing the TV with a baseball bat. Walmart personnel reportedly called the police upon witnessing the incident. At around the 13-minute mark in the video, an officer was seen handcuffing 20-year-old Jukes and her friend. The former explained that the TV was not store property but her own, saying, "I don't know what's happening, but I just know that's my TV. But I'm in cuffs, so I don't really know." The YouTube video abruptly cut off when the camera handler was instructed to move along. Jukes received heavy backlash in her comments section, with people criticizing her prank. Updates on the matter indicated that Jukes was arrested, but the legal ramifications of the ill-fated stunt remained unclear. Regardless, the YouTuber continued publishing similarly controversial content on her channel in the incident's wake. After number 1, we'll line up our longer compilation about when having fame and money goes wrong. For those of you who hadn't seen that one yet and feel like they haven't nearly gotten their daily they will kill you dose yet. Number 1. Mona Lisa Perez. In June of 2017, teenager Mona Lisa Perez announced on Twitter that she and her 22-year-old boyfriend Pedro Ruiz were going to film a dangerous video for their YouTube channel. The couple had been trying to gain followers by sharing pranks they played on each other. In her post, Ruiz mentioned that her boyfriend was the one who'd come up with the idea. Ruiz had reportedly talked to one of his aunts about what they were going to do, and the woman advised him against it, asking him why he would do such a thing. He reportedly replied by telling her they were trying to become famous. On the day of the filming, the couple, who at the time were parents to a 3-year-old and had a second baby on the way, went outside their home in Holstad, Minnesota. Ruiz filmed himself describing the stunt, saying that he was going to hold a hardcover encyclopedia book while Perez fired a handgun at him. In the footage, 19-year-old Perez stepped out of a car holding a .50 caliber Desert Eagle, one of the most powerful semi-automatic handguns in the world. The firearm was placed on a pillow as she presented it to the camera. Perez had previously refused to participate in the dangerous stunt and also attempted to back out of it while they were recording the video. "Babe, I'm not doing this. I can't," she told Ruiz. Moments before going through with the shooting at his repeated requests, Perez pulled the trigger, firing the bullet right at the hardcover book as planned. Stop, babe, Ruiz said when the bullet pierced through the encyclopedia and struck him in the chest. The man died before he could be airlifted for medical treatment. Following the incident, Perez was detained and charged with second-degree manslaughter. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 180 days in jail, in addition to being banned for life from owning firearms or collecting any form of payment for her story. Number 9. Brandon Lee. Brandon Bruce Lee, son of legendary martial artist and actor Bruce Lee, followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a martial artist himself and started an acting career. Lee had landed a role in the 1994 movie The Crow, which was to be his most notable performance. Unfortunately, it would also be his last. Lee was just days away from wrapping the movie when he was accidentally killed on set by a prop gun. Lee's character was to be shot as part of the scene, but negligence led to him being shot by an actual projectile. The prop gun had previously been loaded with dummy rounds, which are projectiles without an explosive charge. During the scene that killed Lee, the gun was to be loaded with blank rounds, which have an explosive charge but no projectile. This was done, but the bullet from the previously used dummy round had lodged inside the barrel of the gun, unbeknownst to the production crew. When the gun was fired in the fatal scene, the explosive charge from the blank round propelled the hidden bullet into Lee's abdomen. In the scene, his character was scripted to fall forwards, but Lee, having been shot for real, stumbled backwards onto the floor, and the crew initially thought he was joking when he didn't get back up. By the time they realized what had happened, it was already too late. Lee was rushed to hospital, where he had intensive surgery but couldn't be saved. Brandon Bruce Lee died on March the 31st of 1993 at the age of 28. Number 8. James Dean and Paul Walker. James Dean and Paul Walker were both renowned actors before their tragic deaths on the road, both of which took place inside of Porsche sports cars. James Dean was a young actor who began making strides in his acting career in the early 1950s. Dean was daring and had harbored an interest in car racing since his youth. Unfortunately, this passion would indirectly lead to his death on September 30th of 1955. Dean, who'd raced in competitions before, was breaking in his 1955 Porsche Speedster for a race with his passenger, a mechanic. A 1950 Ford Tudor, which was much heavier than Dean's Speedster, crossed over the center line into his lane, and the two vehicles collided almost head-on. An eyewitness described seeing Dean's car smash 2 or 3 times into the ground in cartwheels before it landed in a gully by the shoulder of the road. Dean suffered multiple internal injuries and the impact broke his neck. The crash killed him instantly, but his passenger survived with serious injuries and a broken jaw. Dean was 24 when he died. 58 years later, in November of 2013, the Fast and Furious film series star Paul Walker sat in the passenger seat of a 2005 Porsche Carrera GT. The vehicle was being driven by his friend Roger Rodas through a 45-mile-per-hour zone in Santa Clarita, California. They were on their way back from a charity event hosted by Walker. The Porsche, being driven at what investigators believe was between 80 miles per hour and 93 miles per hour, collided with a concrete lamppost and then 2 trees. The car suffered colossal damage and burst into flames. The 2 men died, their bodies turned unrecognizable from the scorching fires that had engulfed the vehicle. Investigators found no drugs or alcohol in the 2 men's system, and there was no evidence of any racing. The cause of the accident was put down to the speed of the vehicle and the condition of its tires. The death of Paul Walker in particular made international headlines and received a huge outpouring of grief from fellow Hollywood stars and fans alike. Paul was 40 years old at the time of his death. Number 7. The Charles Manson murders. Widely regarded as one of the biggest tragedies in the history of Hollywood, the Charles Manson murders, also known as the Tate LaBianca murders, took place between the 9th and 10th of August, 1969. Charles Manson, a failed musician turned cult leader, instructed 4 members of his following, referred to as his family, to murder the occupants of a house previously rented by record producer Terry Melcher. Inside the house at the time were movie actress Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant, and 3 of her friends. Tate begged Manson's followers and allowed to give birth to her child. The Manson family showed no mercy, and they proceeded to murder all 4 occupants of the house by stabbing and the use of a revolver. Tate was stabbed a total of 16 times, and her unborn son died with her. The following night, Manson took the 4 followers along with 2 others in the family to another house, where they proceeded to murder a couple living there, the LaBiancas. Charles Manson and the followers involved were all convicted for their roles in the murders. They were initially all sentenced to death, but the Supreme Court of California later deemed the death sentence unconstitutional, and their lives were spared. The murderers have all been denied parole multiple times and will likely live out what remains of their lives behind bars. Charles Manson died in 2017 from cardiac arrest, resulting from respiratory failure and colon cancer. He was 83 years old and had spent over the past 40 years in prison for his crimes. Number 6. Lisa Robin Kelly. Lisa Robin Kelly was an American actress best known for her role on the hit sitcom That 70s Show, which she starred in alongside Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. Born in 1970, she was said to have been a happy child and was close to her family as she grew up. Throughout her life, however, she encountered multiple legal issues involving alcohol and drug abuse, as well as incidents of domestic violence in her relationships. Kelly claimed her alcohol problems were what had caused her to permanently leave her breakthrough role in That 70s Show. She admitted to having burned all her bridges there, and she didn't find much work after leaving the program. Kelly's legal issues plagued her life as well as her career, and in the summer of 2013, after checking into a rehabilitation center, she died in her sleep of a suspected drug overdose. She was 43 years old. Number 5. Hagen Mills. Hagen Mills was an actor known for his role in the comedy drama Baskets, which aired on the FX channel. He was found dead in May of 2020, shortly after the attempted murder of Erica Price, the mother of his child. Mills had entered the home of Price and kept her mother and their daughter hostage there until Price returned home from work. When she did, Mills shot Price in the chest and in the arm. Despite these injuries, Price was able to escape the house, and police were called to reports of the shooting. Inside the house, they found Mills. Erica Price survived the encounter, and her mother and daughter were unharmed during the ordeal. Number 4. Phil Spector. Phil Spector was a musician, record producer, and songwriter, generally regarded as one of the most influential people in pop music's history. In 2009, Spector was convicted of murdering American actress Lana Clarkson with a gunshot to the mouth inside of his California mansion, the Pyrenees Castle. The murder occurred in 2003. Clarkson was 40 years old and was discovered slumped in a chair with her teeth across the floor. In an interview with Esquire, Spector claimed that Clarkson. The prosecution later stated that Spector had pulled the gun on 4 other women previously. Each time he had been intoxicated and was romantically interested in the women but lost his temper after they'd shunned him. For his crime, Spector was convicted and sentenced to 19 years to life in the California state prison system. He died in January of 2021 in a prison hospital. Number 3. Heath Ledger. Born in 1979, Heath Ledger was an Australian actor who'd moved to the US to pursue a promising career in the film industry, aspiring to one day become a film director. He was best known for his role as the Joker in 2008's The Dark Knight, which earned him multiple awards posthumously and brought him international acclaim. Throughout his career, Ledger suffered from insomnia, which would worsen whenever he'd undertake a new role. He began taking Ambien pills, but he found that even those would sometimes not suffice to help him sleep. It was a slippery slope for Ledger, and he soon found himself abusing prescription drugs in attempts to soothe his mind. On January the 22nd of 2008, Ledger was found in his bed unconscious by his housekeeper and his masseuse. He wasn't breathing, and CPR attempts failed to revive him. An autopsy report revealed that Ledger had died accidentally from a combination of 6 different prescription drugs. It was reported that at the time, he also had a chest infection, which may have contributed to his weakened system. Ledger was 28 years old when he died. Number 2. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was arguably the most famous actress and model of the 1950s and early 1960s. Her films grossed $200 million throughout her career, which is around $2 billion today. Despite her great success in the film industry, Monroe had problems with substance abuse and suffered from mood disorders. She also struggled with the attention she got from the press, who delved into her private life and exposed her personal issues at every opportunity. Monroe's substance abuse continued to get worse, as did her mental health. On the evening of August the 4th of 1962, 36-year-old Monroe was found dead in her LA home. Bottles of barbiturate pills were found next to her. Number 1. Rebecca Schaeffer. Rebecca Schaeffer was an American model and actress who was shot dead on July the 18th of 1989 by 19-year-old Robert John Bardo, an obsessive fan who had been stalking her for 3 years. Bardo had apparently become jealous and enraged at Schaeffer when she appeared on TV in bed with a male actor for a scene in a comedy film. Bardo paid a detective agency to find Schaeffer's address. Shortly after receiving the information, Bardo visited the property and murdered Schaeffer with a shot to the chest. Bardo was arrested the following day and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Schaeffer was just 21 at the time of her murder. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have 10 million subscribers on YouTube or get $1 million in cash? Let us know in the comments section below.